guess what time it is? It's Gilded Age, episode 5. Charity has two functions. That's the title of the episode. Let's get into it. We're going to take a deep dive. Hey, everybody. It is It is I, the infamous Kiki. Who am I? Well, I break down Gilded Age. Let's see. I'm an artist, a business owner, mother, been in the Wall Street Journal, been on various blogs and stuff. I'm not famous like that though, girl, so don't think it like that. But I break down the Gilded Age. I give a unique perspective. I do a historical deep dive, especially when it comes to Black history topics or points. I'll give you guys pictures, links where to look things up at. And so I'm probably going to break this episode 5. Charity has two functions into two parts because I'm taking such a deep dive and I don't want to do hour-long breakdowns. So I'll do this in two parts. So this is going, if my camera will straighten up, this is going to be part 1. Like, share, subscribe, comment below. I love you guys' comments. You guys are always so encouraging because, again, I'm just a person doing this. And I'm looking up this stuff and I just appreciate entertaining you all. And also expanding your mind. So let's go. Let's get into it. So I got my notes. The episode opens up with Miss Gladys sneaking out the house. She with her little maid Adelaide. I think her name is Adelaide. And she got all dressed up. She was trying to sneak out this house, I guess to see Archie Baldwin. So she really liked this dude. But her mom catches her. Her mom's like, where you going? Go get undressed. See me in the drawing room. You're not going anywhere. So, Gladys got caught. Man, she got caught. And meanwhile, at the Van Rhymes, this starts with the downstairs servants and Peggy and the rest of the servants. And Peggy was trying to be nice to Mrs. Armstrong. And Mrs. Armstrong is a witch. Like, Mrs. Armstrong is not very nice. She's not a very nice person, but we'll figure out why in a minute. But she's just mean to Peggy all the time, and she's vaguely, I don't know if she's just snobby or just mean or racist. I don't know. Anyway, but so we go to Marion. Marion's talking to her aunts, saying that Aurora Fane, Aurora Fane is starting to grow on me, y'all. Aurora Fane, she's starting to grow on me. So Aurora Fane invited her to go see Miss Clara Barton. She speaks in Danville, PA. Clara Barton is trying to raise funds and also be a good place where Mrs. Russell can get her way up the social ladder. And also, she wants Marion to be there as well whenever Mr. McAllister sees Miss Russell. She wanted to invite her and a few other people. Apparently, Auntie Agnes don't trust Aurora Fane. Well, she doesn't trust her, but she feels like Aurora is like dipping down by hanging out with Miss Russell. And so she wants Peggy to accompany her to Danville, PA. Peggy and Marion talk. It's still frosty between them. They had a falling out. She tells Marion she knows that she has a good heart, but Marion, she has a good heart and her heart was in the right place. But it's still a little awkward between them, which I thought that they would be over this by now, but I don't know how long the time has passed. But I was like, okay, Peggy girl, I don't know if anyway, I'll just skip that. We'll come back to that later. So while Marion leaves, Peggy's mom is outside, and so Peggy leaves and Peggy's mom's outside and Marion talks to Peggy's mom. And Mrs. Scott is saying basically she wants Peggy to come home. She's like, it's okay that she works here. That's cool. That's great. But she needs to come home, find a suitable husband, get married. Just like the upper class white people, the same problems goes along with the black folks as well. Okay, we just real talking. They want her to marry well. They want her to come home. I didn't hear her mom say anything about her working, so I guess her working probably is an issue as well. But they want Miss Peggy to come home. So Marion's just like, oh. Meanwhile, we cut to Mrs. Armstrong. And Miss Armstrong apparently leaving home for the day. She had a day off, something like that. And child, Miss Armstrong, Miss Armstrong. First of all, she living in the straight gutter.
Sweet about it, like mile like 3-6 pulled up.
I mean gutter, like she in the hood, which is kind of funny because she treats Peggy like she trash, but Peggy got more money and is up upper. Really, when you take the racial aspect of it, Peggy is actually on an more higher tier than Miss Armstrong. So just let that sink in, how idiotic racism is. That Miss Armstrong snubs her nose at Peggy and treats her this way, and she over there living straight in a trap house. You know, she living in a Gilded Age trap house with a mama. So, okay, that's neither here nor there. I won't go on to a tangent about that, but so Miss Armstrong taking care of her mother. Her mother was sick or invalid or something. I don't know. Her mom looked like she can walk, so I don't know what's wrong with her mama, but there's something wrong with her. She's been taking care of her mother God knows how long, but her mom is mean. Her mom is straight up mean. Like, she cooks for her mom, cleans for her mother, and her mom's like, well, you think you're so good, I guess, because Mrs. Armstrong has this job working for the Van Rhymes, and it's, you know, it's a pretty prestigious, really prestigious family, and but you know, she's taking care of her mother, and I don't see Mr. Armstrong didn't have no man. I didn't see no kids. So I was like, Miss Armstrong seems like, you know, I kind of felt bad for her. Like, it seems like she is a very private person, but she kind of leads a sad, lonely life, being stuck with that bitter old mama she got throwing food at her. Girl, nah. I mean, you know, like, here I was thinking Miss Armstrong is a mean person, but her mama got issues too. So you can see where, you know, the meanness is coming from. Like, a lot of people who bully people are being bullied at home. Meanwhile, Aurora's talking to Marion, and yes, Mr. McAllister is going to meet Mrs. Russell, and so they decided together to invite Mr. Rakes too. Lord, Marion tells her aunts about having dinner with Mr. McAllister and all that, but she leaves out the part that Mr. Rakes is gonna be there, because, you know, she can't. You gotta kind of hide that. You can't let the aunts know that. Anyway, so back to the Russell's house. The servants are talking about Miss Gladys needing a lady's maid. And so Mrs. Turner, you know, Adelaide is like, I would make a good lady's maid. I could do this. Miss Turner, of course, being the cheerful person that she is, otherwise known as a hater. Yes, she a hater. She kind of like, well, you can't be a lady's maid, blah, 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 blah. So the other lady, I forgot her name, she is like the women's head of staff there, the one who just started not too long ago. She asked Adelaide, do you really think you can do it? And she was like, yeah, because to going from a chambermaid or a maid to a lady's maid is a big deal. So, you know, it's an up in rank. And so, to people who don't know what a lady's maid is, I went ahead and looked it up, because I'm sure because I didn't watch enough Bodice Rippers, but a lady's maid, traditionally, she's not a high ranking as a lady's companion, which that's somebody you pay to travel with you. But a lady's maid was up there. The rewards include room and board, travel, improved social status, and in the servants' hall, a lady's maid took precedence akin to that of her mistress. In Britain, a lady's maid would be addressed by her surname, by her employer, while she was addressed as Miss by the junior servants or when visiting another servants' hall. The lady's maid duties include helping her mistress with her appearance, including her makeup, her hairdressing, her clothing, her jewelry, her shoes. A lady's maid will remove stains from the clothing, sew, mend, and alter garments as needed, bring the mistress breakfast in her room, draw her mistress's bath. However, she would not be expected to dust and clean every small item. That would be the job of a housemaid. So a lady's maid is like akin to a valet for a man. So, yeah, and then it's a change of uniform. It's a higher up status. And it looks like Adelaide is pretty young. So that would be really good for her in future employment. Then if she leaves the Russells, she can go somewhere else and get a job as a lady's maid. And it's a bump up in pay as well. So it's a huge opportunity. So the other lady who I think Mrs. the other lady, that she goes and talks to Gladys. She sees Gladys in the hallway and says, "Can I talk to you privately?" And she tells her, "Do you like Adelaide? Do you want her to be your, lady's maid?" And so Adelaide is like, "Yeah." She's like, "Thanks." It's like, "This is the first time anyone's ever asked my opinion about anything." I was like, dang. I felt bad because Gladys, she getting older and she want to come into her own, but her mama's like, she ain't trying to hear it. So yeah. So Adelaide will now be Gladys's lady's maid. So I thought that was cute. Back with Peggy and Marion. Peggy and Marion discusses Mr. Rakes is going to be there at the dinner with the McAllisters. And then Marion tells Peggy she saw her mom and what they talked about. Peggy was not happy about Marion talking to her mom. I was like, girl, okay. Marion's asking Peggy, you really don't tell me anything. You really don't, you don't really say anything, and you don't really, she trying to get to know her. But Peggy, there's some hesitation. There's a mystery there. Peggy's my mystery, because I really don't understand what's going on with her. Then later on, Ada ain't as dumb as she's dingy as she seems. She comes in there and talks to Marion, and she's like, okay, tell me who really gonna be there with the McAllisters. And then Marion admits to her that Mr. Rakes. She asked Mr. Rakes to be there as well. So yeah. Anyway, girl, come on now. So back at the Russells, Adelaide, they have a discussion. Mrs. Bruce, that's the lady who's the head. Mrs. Bruce has a discussion with Mrs. Russell about Adelaide being her maid. Mrs. Bruce will oversee it. Gladys is happy. Everybody's happy there. Mrs. Russell, she's trying to do everything to keep her daughter in check, and basically someone to spy on her daughter or make sure she's on the right path. Okay. So Aurora Fane has everybody there at the McAllisters. It's Aurora Fane, her husband, Marion, Mr. Rakes, Mrs. Russell, and Mr. McAllister, and they all meet. And they're talking about going to Dansville, PA, and about the upcoming trip that they're going to make, and they're all going to go together to support Clara Barton. Now, here we're going to take a deep dive into history. Deep dive time. So, why was Danville, PA important? Well, kids. Danville, PA is yes, Clara Barton did have a speech there. She did do all those things there. That was a real thing. But Danville is the first chapter, the home of the first chapter of the Red Cross. The Red Cross was founded in Dansville on August 22nd, 1881. There is a chapter house that is there. It's now a St. Paul's Lutheran Church, but it's now included in the National State Register of Historical Places. Here's the house where Clara Barton started the first chapter. And Danville is a home to a museum that's there. It's the Clara Barton Museum, and there's a lot of historical remnants there that belong to Clara Barton. And so Danville, very important as being the home of the first chapter of the American Red Cross. So it's not just a place where she spoke. It's still a chapter there. It continues a 130-year link to the community. It is called the Chapter House. That's the name of and it contains archival collections, historical Civil War artifacts, Red Cross history memorabilia, and yeah, Clara Barton was the GOAT. And so here's like a little bit of some of the artifacts and things that are at the museum. Here's a little video representation here for you guys. process figuring a lot into this season. If you have not watched my other videos, I get into a little bit about Clara Barton and about who she was and what she did. It was just the things that I didn't really get into it a lot because I didn't know how prominently she would figure into this episode, but apparently she's in it a lot. So let's talk about Miss Clara Barton. And here is Miss Clara Barton. And she was born Clarissa Harlow Barton. She was born on Christmas Day in 1821 in Massachusetts. She was the youngest child. She had 4 much older siblings. She did not have an easy childhood. Apparently her mother was not very nice to her. Her siblings were kind of more parents than playmates. Her siblings were 10 to 15 or more years older than her, so she was the baby. Or maybe the whoopsie baby. I don't know. Anyway, she attended school. She was shy. Her father was in the military. She lived her father's war stories. And at the age of 18, she went to work as a teacher, not a nurse. Nursing was a male profession. She didn't really get into helping with the effort until the Civil War came. So as the country went to war in 1861, the Battle of Fort Sumter was the mark of the beginning of the Civil War. So troops flooded into Washington, D.C. and Massachusetts. And, it's just during the war, Clara Barton sprung into action. She pretty much made acquaintances with people in the military, and in the military camps, she noticed that they were out of supplies. She bringing in supplies. And, she worked days on end during the Civil War. And she was kind of apprehensive of how the soldiers would treat her. Her being a lot of times the only woman hanging around a camp. But Clara, she gathered her resolve and delivered supplies to troops in the field hospitals. She would collapse with exhaustion. Throughout the war, she continued to collect supplies, visit field hospitals, and work, and sometimes until she was exhausted, ill, or depressed. That was just a little bit of her efforts in the war that got her prestige. But Clara Barton, if you have not read about her, and I know people know her name, but she really was a shero. She really was. There's things that I've learned about her that I had no idea that, the things that the American Red Cross has done, things that Clara Barton, how tirelessly she worked in government, outside of government, to get the American Red Cross up and running. So if you have time, please go learn more about her, and we will learn more about another aspect of the American Red Cross in a minute. So Mr. McAllister arrives, and Mr. McAllister, if you haven't seen my last video, I give a deep dive into Ward McAllister and his life and who he was. Go check out my video, and you will learn. I will show you more about him and what he was all about. And it's a trip because him and Miss Russell, they actually get along, and they're real talking. They're not trying to be coy. I mean, they basically telling each other, Mr. McAllister likes money, and Miss Russell has lots of it. So, and she needs a way in to society, and so they are talking about how that's gonna happen. So I'm glad to see that Mrs. Russell, is gonna get some of her just desserts. Meanwhile, Mrs. Turner, the wench, is leaving for the day. She runs into Oscar Van Rhyme, and so her and Oscar Van Rhyme have a short conversation. But he was like, come meet me at the park later. We have, I could hook you up, do some things. And then Oscar meets with John Adams, which I still haven't figured out that enigma, wrapped in a mystery, wrapped in an enigma. Did John Adams' grandson, was he really gay? Which one grandson we was talking about? I don't know. If you watch my other videos, I bring up a few candidates that I thought maybe could have been this real person, but I've researched so far and found nothing. But he's talking to John and telling John that he think he's found a way in, in the Russell's household, because he has his eyes set on Gladys. And another thing about Gladys, we still don't know how old she is. They keep saying she's of age, but again, back in the Gilded Age, of age, could be 15, 16. She doesn't look 18 to me. But I mean, I think they're being vague about the age because they don't want people to be all like creepy about it. So I think maybe they're keeping that on lock. So the ladies, they arrive in Danville. Peggy's there. Everybody's there. Newspapers are there, and so and then they meet with Mrs. Morris. Mrs. Morris is still bitter, y'all. She's still angry. She's still swallow. She's still mad. She's still hating. I mean, yeah, her husband, you know, he took his own life. Okay, that was something bad. And of course she blamed Mrs. Russell and her husband for that. But to be honest with you, like, he could have weathered the storm like the rest of them did. And it turns out, like, the way she was talking, they didn't really lose all of that money. You know, it's just that her husband panicked and freaked out and maybe had some underlying mental health issues. I don't know, but I'm not going to sit up here and just blame the Russells for her husband just decided to off himself. Like, you know, I'm just like, I'm sorry that happened to him, but come on now. I mean, you know, and I understand she's still bitter. I get it. And no shade. So Peggy wants to interview Clara Barton for the newspaper, for the colored newspaper and everything. And so she talks to Clara Barton, and Clara Barton is just okay. And so Mrs. Morris is like, oh my God, like she freaking out too. And like I said, Aurora Fane is a bit more gracious and gentle, but Mrs. Morris is she's just snobby and elitist. And apparently she don't even have as much money as she did before, so I don't know why she keeping up. I mean, it's laughable these people keep up these pretenses and these rules, when to us now these days it just seems dumb and silly to keep up these quote-unquote rules. But again, 200-300 years from now, there are going to be things that we do in our society that people are going to look back and be like, why was that even a big deal? Even now today, there are things that we do, and it ain't even been 200 years. Like segregation, like the fact that black people and white people couldn't go to school together. They couldn't sit in the same restaurant. Like now that seems really silly and just dumb. But that was the social order. And not only just in the deep South, but in some places in the North too, there was high amount of segregation. I would say legal segregation. Social segregation is something completely, that's another conversation for another video. But there's still social segregation. Our society is very racially divided. Not as much as it was, you know, like in the 50s and the 60s, but it socially is racially divided. Like most people have friends and associates and people most people eat with, go to church with, and lay with people who look like them. That's just a reality. I mean, yeah, there's exceptions always. There's always going to be a segment of majority that will, you have, you know, diverse friends, diverse things. But especially people in my generation and our 40s and 50s, most people, you know, despite what they preach on TV and what you see on a lot of TVs and movies and commercials, our world isn't that diverse in that way of, like, you know, co-mingling. Commercials put that out there, you know, because you sell more to more people. But in reality, you know, a lot of areas are very, even where you live, may be very racially segregated. Even in the United States in 2022, there are a lot of areas that are predominantly black, that are predominantly white, that are predominantly Hispanic, predominantly Asians, whether that's by design or providence. You know, like I said, that's a discussion for another time. But back then, yes, society was very segregated, and the idea of Peggy going to eat with them, Mrs. Morris almost like she was about to choke and have a cow. So I guess Peggy was asking Clara Barton some questions about, you know, about, like, you know, the Red Cross and everything. And the fact that Clara Barton let Peggy into to the hospital. They go to the hospital, not eat with them, I'm sorry. They go to the hospital and they visit, you know, see what the inside of the hospital, because she's there to tour a hospital and everything. And so again, the fact that Peggy was allowed and Miss Barton allowed her was, you know, was a bit shocking. But I have to say that there are some things about the American Red Cross that have pioneered and championed civil rights. Clara Barton was a friend of Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass, abolitionist, speaker, book writer, civil rights legend, champion in the 1800s. Her and Frederick Douglass corresponded through letters, and he encouraged her to keep on her good fight. So Clara Barton, she had friends in the abolitionist movement, and Clara Barton wanted to help people. But the history of African Americans in the Red Cross is very, very interesting. So here's some of the information that I pulled up, just in case you guys didn't know. The first African American nurse to be accepted into the American Red Cross nursing service was Frances Reed Elliott. And here's Mrs. Frances Reed Elliott. Also, you need to know about Mary McLeod Bethune. She was an educator, active in African American affairs, and a special advisor to President Franklin D. Roosevelt on problems of minority groups. She was instrumental in establishing a relationship between the American Red Cross and the African American community in the early 1900s. Yes, so here is Mary McLeod Bethune. And here's the juggernaut itself. One of the things that I'm sure that a lot of you guys didn't realize, you know how the American Red Cross has blood donations, blood banks, little things. All of that was pioneered by a Charles Drew. He was a surgeon, a pioneer methods of storing blood and plasma for transfusion, organized the first large blood bank in the country. He was a graduate of Amherst College and McGill University in Montreal, Canada, where he earned a both Doctor of Medicine and Master of Surgery degrees. During his time, he examined problems and issues regarding blood transfusions. After his father's death, he returned to America. In 1938, he received a Rockefeller Fellowship to study at Columbia University. And his exploration into blood-related matters, he is the first African American to earn the degree from Columbia, actually. He is the one that spearheaded the efforts of blood banks and mobile blood units. There's a biomedical service, Charles Drew Institute, is named for him. And so here is this wonderful, wonderful man. So that's just a little bit about the history of African Americans and their Red Cross. Also, another thing, a little anecdotal thing that has nothing to do with Clara Barton. If you know about the Tulsa riots in 1921 and everything that went on there, if you do not know, I would say stop this video and go Google the Tulsa riots or the Tulsa massacre that happened in 1921 in Tulsa. The first people on the scene to care for the victims of the Tulsa massacre was the Red Cross. And there was actually a gentleman, I forgot his name. There was a whole documentary I watched like 2 years ago about a gentleman who was the head of the Red Cross in the Oklahoma area that went there and wrote everything down about what he saw. And his journals and his records have been used, in the fight for reparations for the Tulsa massacre victims. It has been used as a basis for, what really happened. And of course he came during the aftermath, but he took pictures of like the cities being decimated and everything. It's a very interesting thing. I'm going to find this documentary. I'll put links in the description so you can find out more about that, because that is, the American Red Cross has been there through various instances all over the world really now. But really when it came to a lot of instances of cities being wiped out, a lot of lynchings, a lot of mass scale violence that happened in this country, in the early 1900s, the American Red Cross was dispatched out to help people, to distribute blankets and things. And so it's a very, I wouldn't say a little unknown history. It's a big unknown history about the writings in the journals and the historical records that the American Red Crosses have kept. I think it's an untapped resource when you're talking about history. So I just thought I'd put that out there. But yeah, so that was my deep dive on that. And so up next we're going to talk about Aurora and all of them having dinner and what comes next about Oscar. And we're going to give more of a deep dive, you know, about other historical things in part 2. So that's the end of part 1, folks. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, like, share, subscribe. Look at the description box where I'll put links to historical things you can check on your own, things that I found, pictures that I found. And so that until my next video, I'll have my next video probably within the next couple of days. But that's it for now. You guys have a wonderful day, evening, night, or whatever. Bye-bye.